Hello and welcome to episode 3 of season 3 of the Anime Kiwi podcast. I'm Mike.
I'm Katoda.
And we're talking about episodes 11 through 14 of Monster this week. What do you think of these eps, Doter?
I thought they were fine, I suppose. Like, I thought this might happen, but the show's slowing down a bit, and they typically have an episode or two that's kind of situated around one character that they kind of explore, but it'll be related to the plot in some major way, which is important.
Mm-hmm. Well, we also got another one of the episodes, just kind of a side story type thing, just about Tenma that's not really dealing with the plot, too.
Yeah, but I think in a lot of ways, as we've mentioned, this show is kind of not just a character study of like Tenma, but character studies in general seems to be its focus, where it'll take a character and then try and explore what that character means and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's occurring pretty frequently within the show, I suppose.
Yeah, so far, like every episode, pretty much. Apart from that intro setup arc.
Yeah, which they got through pretty quick, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
I really hate a slow setup.
This didn't have that, so I guess we can just get right into it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the episode 11, entitled 511 Kinderheim, opens up with Tenma at the old Liebert place, where the first crime that Tenma knows of, or the first crime he heard of from Johan, occurred way back in, like, Ep 2. Ep 1? I don't remember. Way back at the beginning. And we basically learn here that the Lieberts seem like they were the first couple to pick Johan and Anna up from the orphanage. So it's kind of the beginning of the chain of old couples that he's been with and killed in that order.
Well, they made it sound like before he got to the Lieberts that it happened several times before, but you got to remember that they were found at the Czechoslovakian border, so...
And then brought to the orphanage.
Yeah, so I don't think this is the start of what Johan has been doing, like murdering-wise.
No, it's probably not the start, but it's the start of his MO of staying with the couple and killing them, as far as we know. It's probably not his first killing-wise.
Just thought I should mention that Anna mentioned that he'd already done it several times before. Like Anna, like the Lieberts being killed was kind of like when she discovered what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how he got shot in the head and everything.
Yeah. So this is where Tenma learns about the orphanage at all. And he learns that it's called 511 Kinderheim. And he goes and contacts a guy named Hartman, who is an old employee of the Ministry of Health and Welfare, who ran the place, and he goes to talk to him for details. And on the way there, he meets a boy who's roughed up and takes some care of him, after the boy's kind of cagey, as he would be, about a random guy on an empty street offering to patch you up a little bit. But so he goes to Hartman's place and starts talking to him about 511 Kinderheim, and learns that it was also run by the Department of the Interior, and that it was a special orphanage meant for the children of criminals. And when Tenma mentions Johan, Hartman gets a strange look on his face that at this point I took for fear, but it's definitely not that. We learn in the rest of this episode and the next one especially.
Yeah, based on what happens later, it's pretty clear that it wasn't fear.
Yeah, well, it might have been like a fear of God type thing, but not like fear this crazy fucking kid type thing.
Yeah.
And we basically learned from him that Johan led a revolt there that led to some bad shit going down. And we also... Well, at this point, the kid that Tenma healed up comes in, and it's revealed that he is staying with Hartman because Hartman has taken in numerous foster children, including some from Kinderheim, I guess, after that broke up.
There's pictures of supposed ex orphans, I guess you could call them, but yeah, there's a part in one of the later episodes that kind of recontextualizes what those pictures mean.
Yeah. And then they're eating dinner because Hartman doesn't want to talk about 511 in front of his foster kid. And he starts going into some nature versus nurture stuff with Tenma. How he says that that parenting in the correct way is the way to get kids to be the way you want them, I guess, is how you read it from him.
Pretty much.
And this is where it starts being overt that Hartman is the monster that they are examining for these 2 episodes. It might have been inferable before, but now it's out there.
Yeah, this is the monster arc of these couple episodes, and yeah, this guy's pretty terrible.
Yeah. So Tenma leaves and says he'll come back, talk more about it. And the boy was talking about how he wants a soccer ball. So we get the bad flag here, where Tenma stops at a store and buys him the soccer ball, because nothing good has happened at all this series when Tenma goes to buy a gift for someone.
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that. I hadn't recognized that kind of recurring theme that people he buys presents for have something fucked up happen to them.
Yeah. So at this point, he has also found Anna's old orphanage. No, at this point, he goes back to give the soccer ball to the kid and finds him with some broken ribs, and he realizes that what Hartman's doing. So he basically kidnaps Dieter and takes him to a hospital and says, "Don't let anyone take him. I'll be back in a couple hours." And then he goes to find Anna's old orphanage, which was, I believe, 47, and talks to the woman who's in charge of that, who seems like a nice lady. And she fills Tenma in on the rest of the story, how they were found coming in from Czechoslovakia and sent to the different orphanages. And the episode ends on her saying that 511 was an experimental lab run by the Department of the Interior. And that's that episode.
Kind of seems like maybe some inklings of like Nazi genetic engineering or something is probably a bit off the mark, but not entirely.
Mm-hmm. You were in the ballpark.
Yeah, but it seems like that this whole Kinderheim episode with Johann is still just another stop on his path of destruction, so to speak.
Yeah, almost certainly. And this is kind of a little 2-episode arc with the next episode where it picks up and goes over that last scene again, just in case. And we learn that 511, the experiment for 511 was, as written in my notes, turning the soldiers into soldiers, but I'm a dumbass who can't write and watch something. So it's turning the kids into soldiers.
What a dummy.
So yeah, they're basically conditioning them to be cold, merciless, fucked up people for whatever reason. And it sure seems like it worked with Johann. And at this point, knowing what we know about Hartman and 511, that look that he gave earlier was almost certainly just kind of like almost a worshipful musing, I guess. It was definitely admiration.
Yeah, there's a weird kind of worship going on there, definitely.
Yeah. And especially because we learn that Hartman is the one who ran 511 Kinderheim. And I was all ready to think that there might be other people, fucked up people out there from 511, and then she immediately said that everyone from... It was her or Hartman? I don't remember. One of them said that everyone from 511 besides Johann killed each other. So that kind of put a damper on that theory of mine real quick.
Yeah, and then, as I mentioned, it kind of recontextualizes those children's pictures on his wall, because nobody from that orphanage survived, so he wasn't fostering anybody, they were already dead. So It's really morbid that he would have their pictures on his wall like that.
Unless there are other pre-Dieters that he was taking and trying to make like Johann that failed.
Possibly, yeah.
Because we see that there was a picture of Dieter in front of 511. So he's clearly taking them there to take pictures of them in front of it. You know, it's all dilapidated now.
Yeah, you'd think an event like that would change somebody's mind about something, but he's still going whole hog on this stuff.
At this point, Tenma goes back to the hospital and finds out that they let Hartman take Dieter. And he's clearly not happy about this, because why would he be? And so he goes all around looking for them, and then heads back to Hartman's apartment and goes into his desk to find all these pictures that we were talking about, more copies of them. And in addition, he finds one of Johann with an old dude that we do not know yet. So I'm sure that's going to come up at some point. That guy's probably not a good fellow. And at this point, Tenma realizes that Hartman's taken Dieter to 511. So he goes there, and Dieter is super shaken up on a big throne-looking thing at the top of some stairs by a fire. And Hartman's there, and he starts monologuing to Tenma about how Johann was the ideal child for what they were going for. And he's been trying to make another one. And that Johann started and instigated and watched the massacre at 511 from that chair, right like Dieter's sitting in. And then we get a quote from Johann showing just how fucked up he was. And I don't think that he got like this at 511. I think he was like this before. He said, well, this was happening, that hatred is what happens when people gather. I just poured oil on it. So Johann was, as far as we can tell, super messed up in the head. And then
I think for the timeline to line up correctly, he would have to already be this messed up before he arrives at Kinderheim. Otherwise, it doesn't line up correctly.
Yeah, because it's clearly not working that well for anyone else, so why just this one kid?
Yeah.
And I have the words General Wolf written down for some reason, which I'm pretty sure is that old guy with Johann in the picture, but I don't remember how that came up. Do you?
He mentions, he kind of threatens Tenma that, I'll give you this information if you leave and don't take Dieter with you. And that's when he kind of tells him about that stuff.
Right, because Tenma's trying to... at this point, Hartman has a shotgun pointed at Dieter's head and is trying to convince Dieter to leave Hartman and come with him, which he eventually does. And Hartman doesn't shoot, he just has a super mega crying breakdown because he thinks that
that dude's messed up.
Yeah, he thinks that he's broken Dieter to need him, to think that things are broken in the world.
That's a real thing with abusers, and it's one thing I like about the show quite a bit is that ideas with people being monsters in different forms and stuff, that it typically isn't just written in a TV show sort of way that you might get on an American TV show or something. It's it's very accurate to how people behave, and patterns of abuse, and people who are abusers think that the person they've abused needs them or something. It's people can be real messed up.
Yeah. And there had to be some fucked up stuff going into writing this. I'm going to have a positive outlook and hope that wasn't first-hand experience he was going off writing this, but instead that he did some terrible soul-sucking research to learn about monsters so he could write about monsters.
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of the two, really.
Yeah, probably, but trying to keep it a little positive here.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I have a new segment for us here.
Really?
As you may know, multiple shows air per season, and Monsters no exception. So we're going to play a game.
Is it a fun game?
It's going to be fun for me.
Oh.
I'm going to read you the synopsis of two series, One will be real and one will be fake. The real one will have been one that started the same season as Monster. Or will have been running the same time as Monster, I should say.
Okay, so I gotta find the real one, do I?
Yeah, you gotta find the real one.
Okay.
Okay. Number 1. Midori Days. Seiji Sawamura is the toughest student in his high school. A few classmates idolize him. One, Midori Kasugano from a different school, shyly loves him from afar, but most are just afraid of him, which has made it impossible for him to find a girlfriend. In desperation, he says to himself that he will grow old with only his right demon hand as lifelong companion, until one morning when he wakes to find a miniature Midori attached to where his right hand used to be.
That can't be real, can it?
Number 2. Fruits Deluxe. Kenji Kurosawa is a shy boy without any real friends. Day after day, he returns from school to work at his parents' produce market. One night, after wishing for a friend on a shooting star, one crashes into the shop. He wakes up to discover that various fruit have turned into young and beautiful girls.
Okay, that's the real one. The latter one has to be real.
That real one is one of my own creation. Midori Days is the real one.
God damn it. Anime's terrible.
Aired spring 2004 alongside Monster.
Have I mentioned that anime sucks before at all?
We've watched 2 that you've liked out of 3. So,
Out of 3, but have we mentioned the specials? Because the record isn't anywhere near as positive on that front.
let's pull up the specials. Let's see what we got here. Let's see. The first one we won't talk about. The second 2 are bad, yeah. Angel's Egg was good. Jinro was bad.
Yeah, Angel's Egg is great.
Cat Soup was good. Death Village was bad.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, maybe the record isn't great.
Yeah, there's not some great stuff in there.
The real good ones are real good.
Yeah, I suppose. But
the bad ones are real bad.
You gotta get a mental picture of all of those Midori Days or whatever it was called type shows in your head, and the moe garbage that you tried to parody with your fruit girls thing. All of those shows, the anthropomorphic battleship cutie anime girl bullshit stuff. I don't know the name of the anime that I'm thinking of, but I know it's terrible.
I only know the shortened name.
But just try and get a mental picture of all of those types of animes and how many there are, and the weight of them starts to crush your mind, and you start to become a really depressed and just terrible. Your brain just goes to mush. You can't comprehend all of them.
Also, you're thinking of Kantai Collection.
Great.
Combined Fleet Girls Collection.
Anybody who watches that show, I instantly hate. And
it was originally a free-to-play web browser game.
Typically, I don't say that sort of thing about what people like, but if you like that, please don't talk to me, ever.
As of April 2015, the game is available in Japan only and has 3 million registered players.
Oh boy.
Let's see. Population of Japan is 127.3 million.
That's still some pretty bad odds.
Let's see what percentage of Japan is playing this game.
That'd be roughly 2%, wouldn't it?
If I can math. Yeah, about 2.5%.
That's too many.
2.5% of the population of Japan is playing Kantai Collection.
Can we put them in a rocket and fire them into the sun?
I don't think we can. Unless that rocket was also a young girl.
Yeah, that'd work.
They'd get in willingly.
But yeah, I guess that's what I picture when I think of modern anime. It's that sort of stuff, and it's the moe garbage and the boring slice of life crap featuring only girls and people losing their mind when they make a version of that with male characters.
Yeah. But you get to look forward to the next edition of this game in a few days when we record the next app.
Hooray.
And this ran for 6 seasons or something. So
of course it did.
No, Monster did. Midori Days was 1 season.
Good. Even Japan knew that was stupid.
So was Fruits Deluxe. Fruits Deluxe actually ran for 7 seasons.
Isn't that your fake anime?
Yeah.
So it ran for 7 seasons in your mind.
It's very successful
Yeah.
in my mind.
Your mind must be some Pandora's box shit.
Anyways, episode 13. This one's kind of a little side episode where Tenma and Dieter go to a local village. We see a doctor going around doing his doctoring stuff, and he goes back to his office to find out that the town drunk got hit by a car and was patched up by a traveling doctor. The doctor goes to the local diner and finds Tenma and kind of scolds him, I guess, because Tenma left some money to pay the man's medical bills since he didn't have the money. And we learned this doctor is a nice guy who wasn't going to charge him anyways. So they kind of, I guess they kind of make good and are kind of friendly at this point. And then Tenma starts going around helping him with stuff because he's a lot of people are sick and hurt in the village, so he needs some extra help. So they eventually get to a house where the woman inside doesn't want to see a doctor. She insists she's fine. And Tenma goes up and does the whole it's easier to attract flies with honey than with vinegar thing and gets her, because the doctor's kind of losing his patience with her. Because as we learn, I think we might have learned it right before this, that he is basically in love with the woman and is super concerned and is not happy that she won't get checked out.
Yeah, you can hear him when he's yelling at her through the door. He mentions that if she dies, he loses his reason for living, and he gets all embarrassed.
Yeah, and he starts talking about her goulash.
Which isn't a euphemism.
No. Goulash is good shit, if it's good.
I've never had it before. I don't even know what it is.
It's like a beef stew.
Well, I do like beef stew.
It's very, very good. But Tenma, I should mention that when they were at the diner, a police officer came in and recognized Tenma, and Dr. Schumann was like, no, this is Dr. Chan. He's a different guy. And then Tenma gets the door open, and basically immediately she passes out, or she goes unconscious. And they rush her to the clinic, at which point we see the police officer see a picture of Tenma and calls his superior and says, I saw this Asian guy here. I think he's this murderer.
Well, they do look exactly the same, as in he had a picture of, so...
But he was called a name from a completely different ethnicity.
Which I thought was kind of a funny, detail in the show. Because it's written by a Japanese person, of course, so... The fact that they would add in that kind of... It's a smart look into how people, look at ethnicity and stuff. Yeah. And it's just this tiny little detail, and I like stuff like that.
So anyways, we're back at the clinic, and they're basically piling on the praises for Tenma again. Because they say that it's amazing that he's able to do this without a craniotome, which I just looked up. And that is a tool for drilling little holes in a skull so that you can connect the dots and make a bigger hole. I don't know if you've ever carved a pumpkin. Do they do pumpkin carving in Australia?
Not really.
Okay, because when you do pumpkin carving, there's a little tool where you basically do the same thing, and then you saw in between them. So it's like that.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I've used a similar technique to break into hard plastic things and stuff before.
Yeah, but that's what it is. I didn't know what it was, so I just looked it up. And the police officer comes in, basically pulls a gun on him, and Schumann's like, Heinz, the dude is elbows deep in your mom's head. Do you really want to do this? And he's like, he's not healing her, he's going to kill her, he's a murderer. And then Schumann basically yells him out of the room. And Tenma saves her. And Heinz covers for Tenma. I like these side episodes. In this episode, there wasn't a monster per se, I don't think. But it was more of Schumann mirroring Tenma of how things would have gone if this Johan thing never happened, because we go into Schumann's backstory where he rose up the ranks and married the director's daughter and was so focused with his research and his career that she got a fatal illness. I forget what it was. And she died basically because of his not paying attention to anything but himself. And then in trying to make amends, or I guess maybe run away from his past, he came out to the village and started doing work there.
Yeah, I think this episode is an example of something that I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, that that another theme of the show that they've explored a few times is that, you know, if you're the sort of person that is good and kind of spreads your goodness around, it isn't just a case of that the one person that you were good to feels all bubbly and nice, you know. It kind of spreads, you know. Goodness is a thing that spreads, and this is another episode that kind of explores that, on top of the thing that you mentioned where they are kind of mirroring Tenma and having another version of him that's older and more jaded, I suppose.
Yeah, this episode was, in addition to that character study, was Tenma kind of spreading his own legend through Schumann and the police officer in kind of an episode, or a legend that's directly opposed to the one Johann spreading through his old people murder and general murder too, I guess. But
would you say like there's kind of like a like with Tenma, there's kind of like a wandering samurai thing going on with him?
Kind of, yeah. Although usually that's a mercenary thing, or that's the cliche thing, I think. More of a Yojimbo, I'll help you if you pay me type thing, whereas Tenma's just wandering around helping people because he's a good boy.
Yeah, I just thought I had kind of a, you know, stranger comes into a village and does a good thing and then disappears, you know, it's kind of like a wandering samurai thing.
Yeah. And then Tenma tried to leave Dieter in this village. Dieter's been with him the whole time. And Schumann's trying to get Tenma to stay, and he won't, so he whispers to Dieter, hey, go with him, take care of him. Because I guess Schumann sees that there's a screw in Tenma that's threatening to come loose if he doesn't have someone good to keep the reins on him, for mixed metaphor of the decade.
It was well executed.
Sure. And then episode 14, we get something kind of weird. Tenma's not in this episode. This is a Lung and Eva episode. I think we see a couple pictures of Tenma, but that's about it. This is kind of two stories run in parallel. We see Lung investigating the murder of a high-profile hooker, and he basically has a disc with information that is pinning her to it's like a congressman or something, but the crime's made to look like a suicide, and that part's not that important. But what is important is that it comes to our attention that he has been completely neglecting his wife and daughter for work, and they end up walking out on him, and he doesn't seem to give a shit about it. They say they're leaving, and he says, okay, I have to go do work, we'll talk about this later. Kind of, I guess, not getting through his head that they're gone forever. In this whole thing, we see Eva come to his office asking about Tenma and why they're not looking for him, and he says that they've already figured out that Tenma's guilty, so it's on the police to look for him now. It's not his problem. And the important thing here that we see is that he thinks that Johan is an alternate personality of Tenma's that is doing these crimes, which explains why there's so many people who will go to bat for Tenma, even though all evidence points to a Johan not existing. And then we go to, it's kind of a flashback and over to, we go to see Eva, who is just kind of drinking her life away, kind of pissed off at Tenma. and the investigation not happening. And we see her sleeping with people to get whatever she wants, basically. And she extends this to her gardener, who is going through a divorce and is lonely and is easily taken advantage of. So she basically starts stuff with him, and he gets all excited and invites her over for, I forget what holiday was it. Was it Christmas or it was Christmas? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And she acts like she blows him off, and then the mother comes back and she sees it and gets real pissed off and burns her house down.
Indeed, she does.
So we see that the takeaway from this is that she is grieving and insane about it.
Insanely grieving.
Yeah.
That'd be a good song title.
So we basically see that as long as this, I guess, this misery is burning in her, she can't live normally in a sane way. So this is where we meet up with the other story, where we see her go to Lung's office and see what's up. And she basically says, hey, we need to get this guy because I can't be happy until this fucker's dead. And Lung's like, yeah, let's do it, in his own way. And then the episode ends.
Well, we should kind of mention that that Lung kind of like indirectly causes the suicide of the secretary that handles the whatever that politician was, and he's kind of put on like
a indirect suspension type thing. They take all his cases away from him.
He's not directly suspended, but he's given no cases, so it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So he's basically lost his family and also everything that's important to him.
So I think with Lung, I think he's not like as I mentioned, an Asperger's type. I think he's more of like a sociopath, because he's not like violent and manipulative in the way that Johan is, which is more psychopathy. He only cares about himself, and he's very unfeeling and very unempathetic and stuff.
Yeah, that's probably a better assumption. Now that we have a bit more information about how he operates.
Yeah, and he just doesn't have like any ideals about justice or whatever. He just cares about
closing the case
himself, I guess. Just likes the puzzle of it, I guess.
Well, that's these 4 eps. Next week we have the Yakuza 2 crossover episode, Be My Baby.
Crossover?
Yeah, don't you remember that from Yakuza 2?
It's been a long time since I played that.
With the side quest where they invite you into the club, and it's the club where all the other Yakuza are wearing diapers and getting treated like babies. And then you have to beat them all up.
I don't know. I'll have to have a look at this because I don't remember that.
Otherwise known as the best side quest in the entire series.
Maybe I missed that side quest?
It is a side quest, so it's missable. Let's see where we came upon it in our playthrough here. You can go check out episode 22 of our Let's Play of Yakuza 2 on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/GameKiwi. Also entitled Be My Baby. It's a good side quest.
It sounds entertaining.
It is. Cosmo doesn't take their shit.
He usually doesn't.
Speaking of which, we're almost at the really good parts of Yakuza 2. I think we're at the part where the golden castle comes out of the ground and we have to fight tigers.
I do like fighting tigers.
I assume you remember that part, since that was not a missable thing.
Yes, I remember that part quite clearly.
Okay, good.
It's only one-upped by the bear punching going on in 5.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, that tiger punch is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Anyway, that's this episode of Anime Kiwi. Next week is 15, 16, 17, and 18.
Hooray for counting.
Counting, it's another segment. I count 4 more numbers every week. Let's see how high I can go next week.
It's my favorite segment.
You certainly like it better than the Guess the Anime one, I'm sure.
That's entertaining in its own morbid kind of way.
Yeah, let's just get wrapped up here. But I mentioned the YouTube earlier. As always, you can shoot us an email or whatever at anime@gamekiwi.net. Maybe you'll be the first. I hope you will be.
What's an email?
It's an electronic mail.
Oh,
So yeah, put your stamp right up in the upper left corner of your screen, send it in. Upper right corner. I don't know, they do it different in other countries?
wait 3 to 5 days for it to arrive.
Yeah. We're also on Twitter and Facebook as the Game Kiwi. You put those in the appropriate places, you should find us. We're on iTunes as Pod Kiwi. That'll be everything, including whatever other podcast projects I do, unless something gets popular enough to break off, which it probably won't. But I think that's it. So yeah, this has been episode 3 of Anime Kiwi. I'm Mike.
I'm Katora.
Thanks for listening, and as always, keep it anime.